Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Marvel Phase 3 in a series of videos that we started 2 years ago. So this is going to be a little jump to the future.
We're very productive.
Yeah. Unlike Marvel, which they release every 2 months or less, we aren't on the same release schedule. So
No, not even close.
not even close. But hey, we're here. So maybe 2 years from now, look out. We'll have Phase 4 ready to go for you.
So will Marvel.
Yeah. they'll have something that actually lives up to Phase 4 by then, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
That's a hype. Actually, what we're talking about today, Phase 3, don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I feel like Phase 3 is the spoiler, or is the bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean, you have so much going into in preparation for
Yeah.
that. You know, obviously Thanos with all the Easter eggs
Yeah.
and secrets and stuff. You're finally getting those payoffs. So
And it's hilarious that they didn't necessarily plan ahead for the Infinity Phase, but it ended up being the best phase where they've planned for this phase, the multiverse phase, and it's the multiverse saga not going super well.
Well, I think this was just a time that they could still bank on the original characters that people already
Yeah.
knew and loved, while also at least at the time spreading their wings a little bit with Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Continuing to do so with Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther,
Yeah.
all that good stuff. So I think it paid off.
A lot of hitters in this phase in this video we're going to be talking about. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to get right into it. We're going to go chronologically by release, not by timeline order. So to kick us off, we're going to start with Captain America: Civil War, and no spoilers on this one, but a very big spoiler right off the bat. I think this might be my favorite one in the entire series.
Yeah, I don't know if it's number one for me, but just the choreography and the storytelling and Captain America, who I know is at the top of your list, but is not at the top of my list.
Yeah, and we'll go into some reasons. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
So Captain America: Civil War, obviously what some people call Avengers 3, right? Avengers. I'm trying to think of Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Basically Avengers 3, and one of the big parts that I think works and doesn't work for this is the villains in this, and the villains are basically themselves, because Baron Zemo is the token villain, right? But
Yeah.
he's not exactly you wouldn't necessarily call him the villain in this movie. He doesn't lead. He doesn't drive the story.
No, because it's kind of Tony Stark, but also Bucky a little bit, but Bucky being the anti-hero, and then
Bucky just seems like he doesn't even want to be in this movie the whole time.
yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, he's just on the run all the time. He's just leave me alone. He's like that stray cat that he's just I'm gonna scratch you.
But he's on the run mainly because of Baron Zemo.
Yeah, and the super soldier protocol.
Yeah.
And all that, the funky words and in order and whatnot.
Yeah.
But which that part and kind of bringing up those Cold War elements and was really well done, building off of obviously Winter Soldier. But Baron Zemo, I think in the comics is a bit more menacing, but like you said, there's just so much going on in this movie that he is kind of a back burner player.
Yeah, and which is maybe doing a disservice to him, because I think he's actually a really good character. I think that he is one of the better pseudo villains in the series, and even if he's not trying to be the main villain, because the main villain or the main plot point in this is just the dynamics between all the characters in it, right? The whole story is basically about how they are at a crisis point and they're trying to figure out and eventually kind of have to take sides on who's going to be on what side of history, right? But I think Baron Zemo does the perfect job of being in there to serve a purpose, but serving his purpose well, and just letting everyone else kind of shine in their roles.
Well, and I mean,
he's like a six man.
coming off the bench to give us 30.
Yeah, exactly. He's the sixth man of the year in this film.
Especially just because obviously like the social commentary that they're talking about, like that people are orchestrating, like part of the conflict is made worse by his, menace and his doing. But also like Iron Man having to take accountability and kind of being an asshole, and like Bucky having to struggle with, the things that he's done, and then Captain America dealing with, is his rigidity as like, the what is it, the truth, justice, and the American way, like the difficulties that presents.
Yeah.
Which he's kind of been struggling with this whole time of that, 1940s ideology being brought into the early 2000s.
It's like in a lot of ways, this movie, and Tony Stark is the main one, but in a lot of ways, this movie is them kind of having to reconcile with like who they are and their impact on the world, right? And Tony Stark, ever since before Age of Ultron, basically after the first Avengers, when he goes through the space hole and everything like that and comes back, like he's just been dealing with his stuff the whole time.
His severe PTSD.
Yeah, his severe and his like, it's fear. It's everything is based off of, especially when Wanda gets in his head and twists them all up. Like it's all based off of fear.
Well, and I think that the payoff that is built from this movie is really felt in Endgame and Infinity War, of that fracturing of that friendship, which is really what it like boils down to is these, these individuals who love each other fiercely, but obviously fiercely disagree with what's going on and the consequences. So I don't know if we get that payoff as much in this movie, but well done for building. I mean, the Russo brothers are brilliant in what they did. But.
Yeah, and you also get the introduction and basically like a prequel, a slashed movie, or a shortened introduction version of Black Panther. Like this is basically Black Panther's, and he has, he's not one of the main characters. He's definitely involved in everything going on, but he is, because of the death of his father in this movie, right? And him thinking that it has to do with Bucky. Like he's very much driving a lot of the action, driving a lot of the conflict between everybody. And I guess let's just, because the one scene that always, and this isn't even the best scene like aesthetically or anything, but the one scene that basically encapsulates, well, two scenes. There's definitely two scenes that encapsulate this movie. The first one being the airport scene where everyone's they fully do the superhero lineup. I'm on this side, you're on this side, and clash like they're at a mosh pit at a concert going together. So like that's very much the one that I think of, and that's where you get the first, because you kind of get the little strings and pieces and hints of like who's kind of on what side as they're trying to decide who's going to sign the accords and everything like that. But when it gets to that point, it's like, okay, I'm on your side. Other than Scarlett Johansson, who kind of Black Widow, kind of like.
But that is her like.
Yeah.
Always like dealing within like whatever she thinks is best
for being a spy. She's a pretty decent diplomat in some ways.
Yeah, which is funny. Well, and I think coming from like a crappy of knowing what like how bad things can be, of just trying to help guide that hand, and that's like the other thing, and maybe some of the issue that I took with either the comic or the movie is like. They almost have it to these like perfect rationales, and then they like are kind of like too altruistic to like their ideas. You know what I mean? Is like it just kind of feels like lazy writing.
Sure.
Is like because I think as a human, like empathy and things like that start to come in, which I think that overall they did a fairly good job. Obviously, Tony Stark and like. Steve Rogers, geez Louise, I can't believe I forgot his name. Captain Crunch, like have for each other, and each one of the individuals, like how do you reconcile those sort of things? But anyway,
which basically leads us to the start before the main action piece that a lot of people point to at the very end of the movie, and the start before that is Tony Stark being shown the video of the Winter Soldier killing his parents, and then him just absolutely going off because that's the worst thing that you can ever see is your parents dying on camera, right? And the fact that he didn't know about it, but Captain America knew about it, and just like you're talking about, all the wanting to feel the empathy, but not in that moment being able to feel it, the rage taking over, the betrayal, all of those emotions taking over, and him having to just start the Civil War. And that's the one. This movie, we should just mention, this movie is one of, definitely behind the Endgame and Infinity War duo, but one of, in the MCU, best action films. I think, and even maybe this is why I like Captain America so much as a franchise, but like even with Captain America Winter Soldier, great action movie as well.
To me, that might take the cake. Just I think
that does
just
take
a little
the cake.
Bit, but
that might be there's definitely pros to the two Endgame and Infinity War movies, but just based off of pure, like if you were just to say this is an action movie, yeah, probably Winter Soldier.
And we won't divulge too much, but or diverge, I should say. But that knife scene, the knife fight scene, is probably one of the best choreographed. Like it's just incredible. But to hop back on another point that I wanted to round back to is like I kind of feel like the path that you see Black Panther take in this, which like you said is such a phenomenal like introduction to his character, is kind of what we were expecting to see from Iron Man, of like having this complex issue and then finding resolve and remembering his morals. But then when you find out that like your best friend knew who killed your parents and like hid it from you, I guess. And also
it's understandable. Yeah.
And also that ending fight is incredible. And why I love Iron Man, the fact that he was able to take on two super soldiers at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, he lost, but like the fact that he was able to hold his own is, I love Iron Man.
This is a movie which very much divides fans on, like, I mean, and that's the intention of the movie, right? It's like, are you Captain America? Are you Iron Man? But you see a lot of story arc with Iron Man's character throughout this movie, and a lot of people point to the end of the movie and being like, that's why I'm Team Iron Man, that's why or that's why I'm Team Captain America based of the way that he handles the situation. But like we said, you can't necessarily blame him for the way that he handled the situation. But anyways, we spent far too long on this movie already.
No,
but
it's okay.
It's because I think it's my favorite in the phase behind probably Infinity War. But still a great film. If we were gonna talk about just like rewatchability, what you could just pop this on at any time, I guess it'd be on Disney Plus now, because we don't really do like over cable movies anymore. But
digital media, I still have all of them. I've never given those bad boys up.
But I think we both say this is really, really high in rewatchability.
Yeah. Probably like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you're familiar with the universe, it's just, I don't know. It's just one that you could pop on the background, bubblegum sort of stuff. It's a really good story, and there's lots of great action pieces, and the character development's fantastic. And again, the Russo brothers knocked it out of the park.
Yep.
So.
All right, so moving on to the next one, we have a movie that is another introduction to a character, because we don't actually ever get Doctor Strange before this, or do we get him in one of those cutaways at the end?
Yes, but where is it?
Yeah, I can't remember where it is, but it's obviously his full introduction.
Right.
Doctor Strange being the movie we're talking about, and as we try to speed through these a little bit quicker, I think what we should definitely just highlight about this movie, and this is another one for me that's really high up on the list. I think this is one of my favorites. I know it's not a lot of people's favorites because they say it's basically just an Iron Man remake with fancy visuals, but I think that is one of the big. One of the things you can point to is that this is one of the big leaps that they took as far as visualization and really getting into the spacey
Jack Kirby weirdness.
There's so many adjectives you could use to describe the visuals in this movie, but that is the thing that people point to and say, okay, even if I'm not a big fan of the story, even if I think it's a Tony Stark retread, that's one of the things that just you can't point at that and say anything, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, in particular, the visuals are top notch. Like probably the best. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 actually had really good visuals, I think. But like just like the space time, like going through dimensions and being weird and like I love that. I love the like the first time we're really seeing magic in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, how they developed that, how they worked around with that. Yes, the story is very much so, the same arc that Iron Man had. But Benedict Cumberbatch does a great job with it.
Great job, great lead. I think that he's fantastic as Doctor Strange. He's immediately believable as Doctor Strange. And I think that to touch on the visuals a little bit and then bring us back into kind of the timeline of this a little bit. A lot of people say that the way that the movie starts with showing Caecilius and showing like all the crazy visuals as they're running through London, like right off the bat, was giving away too much, and they should have saved that for a little bit later in the movie and maybe just started with Doctor Strange's, which to me, I'm fine with the way that they did it. I have absolutely no objections to the way that they did it. But I think that in my opinion, I think that it kind of gives you and it's like what you do now with music or TikTok or social media. It's like give them that hook at the start and then kind of let it build and let it breathe a little bit after that. And that's when you start getting into Doctor Strange's. Immediately, he's basically just a total asshole like Tony Stark. And someone even pointed out on a video I watched one time about how like it is almost the same origin story, just mix like Tony Stark is. It's
basically one for one.
It's in a lot of ways it is one for one. But I think what this has going for it is that you have. I think that you get a lot more about Doctor Strange as a person than you do Tony Stark in that movie.
Yeah, I think the focus with Iron Man had a lot more to do with I think it's Ironmonger. Where that is like my critique of Doctor Strange is I don't feel like Caecilius got as much playtime, and I kind of feel like they could have waited with Dormammu being one of the big bads for Doctor Strange. I mean, I still enjoyed the scene and everything, but I just kind of feel like, especially with somebody as fantastic as Mads Mikkelsen, they could have fleshed that out a bit more.
It was like basically Caecilius and Dormammu were just there to make it a story.
Yeah, like they had to have a antithesis or whatever to like the protagonist, but I don't know. And that's like a running theme I think I have with a lot of the MCU is their struggle to build and carry a solid villain. But that being said, like he's fine. But overall the story is really good. And you and I, when we first tried to talk about this, that watch scene with Doctor Strange, the rotating, rotating rotators.
Yeah.
There we go.
Rotating rotators. Yeah.
It's high rewatchability. This is another one that like I could just throw on and don't have to really worry about.
Yeah, and I think this is a good movie that we can kind of just skip ahead and move on to the next one, because I think that part of the reason why that is that it's very much a movie where you just need to watch it and just enjoy it, and there's not necessarily a ton from this movie that leads into further movies other than just kind of introducing that world of magic, that world of kind of the multiverse. I know we're not really getting into that quite yet, but like just introducing Doctor Strange, but it's just a really good movie to watch.
Summer, what do they call like
summer blockbuster type. Yeah. All right, let's leave it there then.
Okay.
So the next one being Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I want you to start with this one and give me kind of your rundown on this one, because I think this is one that and maybe it's changed, but in the past, I think this is one where I've thought good in some ways, but not a lot that I actually want to go back and rewatch about this one, but I think you feel differently.
No, so this is one that I actually like have to build myself up for.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
'cause-
okay.
So like, okay,
We're on the same page.
Here's the thing. My wife loves Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's lots to love about this. I think Chris Pratt does such a good job as Star Lord. Like, really, the whole cast. Like,
Yeah, which we got immediately. Like the
yeah.
first one, like we there was nothing. No rewrites. Let's like just move forward with those characters as is.
Yeah. I think Ego the Living Planet was great. I kind of felt like we had to rehash a lot of the same stuff with Rocket, which then gets better with the next installment. But I didn't necessarily love that. The soundtrack isn't as good. The visuals
So
are
that's funny because a lot of people say the soundtrack's better than the first one.
That is wrong. That is so like you're wrong. It is absolutely the first movie is way better music. Also,
I think there's some debate, but anyways, go ahead.
the one line that kills me, which I think might be one of the worst lines in the MCU, is Star Lord's mother when she's like, "I like the way your mouth moves when you talk," and I'm like, that is like what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that brings me perfectly to like something that I think is super. It's a big negative to me about this movie is that there's so many cringy parts of this movie, and for me, I know a lot of people disagree. Ego the Living Planet is just one of the most cringy characters in the entire MCU, and I can't get on board throughout the whole movie, and he's pretty much the reason why.
I mean, he is like a legitimate bad guy. He's like that creepy dude who just goes from town to town, I guess, to plant,
Plant seeds of themselves.
Yeah.
Weird,
Which is
huh?
gross. But it makes him a real villain.
And it's like, it's not even the reason why I think it's cringe isn't even necessarily like a perverted reason or anything. It's just like you couldn't have written a better storyline than he goes planet to planet, plants himself. It's like, I know that the movie is a comedy, but it's like it's almost one of those comedies of a comedy. Like, remember back in the early 2000s, there was like the Not Another Teen Movie and all those ones that made fun of. It's like kind of one of those storylines.
I see where you're coming from there. I think the big thing is that they had to build certain things up with like Star-Lord, and obviously to introduce like Mantis and stuff, which again I think pays off better in like the next installment.
For sure. And like you have to introduce his dad as like a character at some point, no matter what that is.
Right. Well, and I know you feel different about this, but like leading up to the idea of the Eternals and the Celestials.
Don't talk to me about the damn Eternals. Don't talk to me about the Eternals.
But just like their role in the universe. But it also kind of was a little bit of a throwaway story just for the fact that like, okay, Star-Lord, you're kind of like a half god, but then you're not anymore.
Yeah, you would think that that's something they could really develop and be like, hey, Star-Lord, remember how you were able to hold that Infinity Stone in the last one? It's because you're half god.
But now you're not anymore, so okay.
It just really like, yeah, it's and so okay, that's plenty of criticism. We've definitely is there anything else that you think is a point to or to something to point out, I guess I should
okay,
say.
one more criticism, but then a couple of things that I like is the blue goose again going like that, like taking over the Dairy Queen is kind of, I think when we're starting to shift too much into like the CGI, even though I get it, it's Guardians of the Galaxy, they're not gonna ask Elon Musk to help them film those scenes.
Sure.
But I kind of feel like they went over the top with that, but I want to flip back because like that opening scene with them getting the batteries,
Yes,
like, and that opening dance scene is like perfection.
I think that is the best part of the entire movie is the opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I'm not even kidding you. I think
Baby Groot.
And maybe Groot. Yeah, baby Groots. Okay, so that actually brings me to something else though. This movie is so confusing to me because while there are a ton of parts of this movie that I just completely can skip over, another scene, especially the more that I've rewatched it, that I really, really enjoy is, and it's not just one scene, but the lead up of Peter Quill's fake dad, the one with the blue head,
Yondu.
Yondu. I think his character arc in this movie, and then his eventual death, and his funeral, and the the send off they give him, and everything like that. That's one of the most emotional, one of the best, one of the like. It's just a great scene, and like I almost wish that there was some way that they could have made the movie more focused on Yondu and like maybe his relationship with Peter or something like that, and less about ego, or even just focusing on stuff like that. Make that a bigger part of the movie. I think would have done them better.
I think it all just plays into James Gunn as a whole, like just giving you a weird, wild, kind of disgusting world.
Sure.
But then just like that, there's this ton of heart of like, yeah, your dad's like a creepy dude who goes from planet to planet, but like your daddy, Mary Poppins, y'all, is maybe not what you thought you needed or wanted. But I mean, I don't know. It's just like
no,
the found family is I think a great story point. So
yeah, that's fair. I think so. To kind of close this one out, I think we'd both agree probably lower on the rewatchability scale, probably across the MCU, but especially in this phase, which is just so stacked with heavy hitters, I'd say this is probably lower on the list for me.
Like a C.
Yeah.
Depending on the mood that I'm in, either a plus or a minus, but a C.
Yeah. All right, that's fair. All right, what do we got next? We have, Spider-Man Homecoming. And the note we have here for some reason is just a good movie. So let's dive into that a little bit more, I guess.
This, as much as I love Tom Holland and his portrayal, he's number 2 for me because Maguire's 3 and Garfield's 1. But this is just kind of a vanilla movie.
Yeah.
Like it's a great Spider-Man, like who remind me of is it Costner? Kevin Costner? Is he the
no, Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, there we go. For the like 8th Bird movie that he's done.
Yeah, I know.
But it's a Batman, Birdman, the Vulture.
Yeah.
The Vulture's a great villain though, like especially going back and like rereading those like OG comics from Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Like the Vulture is like a great villain and they do a great job of that. And obviously Zendaya kills it as like a great, alternate like MJ to what we've, been accustomed to, for lack of a better word. But I don't know. It was a fun summer movie, but this isn't like it's just introducing Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think that it's introducing Spider-Man. It's introducing all the other characters well. I like that something I've heard pointed out before about this movie that's cool is that the introduction of Spider-Man to his best friend, which I'm forgetting his name. Can you remember his name?
It's
Ned.
Yeah, Ned. I wanted to say Genki, but that's a different guy.
I don't even know who this. But anyways, his intro. So like him finding out that Spider-Man's Peter Parker really early on, like I heard it. I was like, then it kind of gives him a sidekick and somebody to bounce ideas off of, and it's not him like all alone the whole time, which is cool. And then obviously the reveal at the end of the movie. The reveal to Aunt May that is just a great, and I think this one does a really good job, similar to like Guardians of the Galaxy, of having the soundtrack like propel the movie. And not just propel the movie as far as like using it as a crutch because it has no storyline, but like using it to just highlight scenes and be a perfect like call and response kind of deal with what's going on, like the movie or what's going on with the movie, the music kind of pushing that along. So and that final scene is a great.
And I agree with that. It's I think another way to say it would just be it's a great visual of Spider-Man as a teenager. And not Tobey Maguire being like a 40-year-old dude being a teenager, but like an actual teenager being a teenager. Is fun.
Yeah.
So.
I don't really have too much more to say about this movie, to be honest. It is higher to me on the rewatchability scale than Guardians of the Galaxy 2, even though we really can't point to much that we thoroughly enjoy about this, but maybe it's just because this is a better movie all around. And I think maybe what you could say that goes in the favor of Guardians of the Galaxy even though they didn't necessarily execute it, is it definitely tried a lot of things. It had a lot of more, extravagant ideas about what they wanted to do with the movie. Maybe they didn't execute all of it, but this is a very vanilla, like teenage story.
Very safe.
Very safe. Yeah. And so maybe that's why it's, you can rewatch it more often, but it's not necessarily the most cutting edge storyline by any means. So
yeah, agreed. Like C plus, B minus. We don't have to rate each one of these, but like you're saying, is like this is one that I do feel like is also the content's just a little bit lighter. So
yeah, and it's not even like lighter. It's not even reaching as much as like some other movies are to be funny. It's very, even with the jokes are very vanilla and like very just like it's almost like a 50s TV show. It's like, here's a joke, all right, and then moving on.
Laugh track.
yeah, exactly. All right, cool. I'm happy with that as far as that movie goes. Medium range on the rewatchability scale. Fun movie, definitely watch it, but it's not anything special. All right, let's move on to another movie that is, to a lot of people, a lot higher on the rewatchability scale, and that being Thor Ragnarok. The first installment of the 3 Thor films that was actually even close to being a good film.
I beg to differ, and I know a lot of people hate the first and second Thor, and like there's a lot that are wrong with those, and justifiably so. Without question, this is the best Thor movie, and
without question,
and absolutely the best Hulk movie.
Which is kind of funny that it is kind of like, because we never obviously got like a real Hulk film other than the one that we had with Edward Norton, but
which isn't canon. Like the one bit of canon that they kept from that is that Edward Norton tries to go into Alaska and shoot himself, and Hulk spits out the bullet.
Yeah, it's all throwaway.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then General Ross.
Yeah.
Everett Ross coming. Yeah. Like that's it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I told you, I actually got the Prelude to War Hulk, the Prelude to Planet Hulk, and War Hulk. Oh man, they're so good. They're fantastic, and there's actually a ton of that I didn't realize that like was just like 1-for-1 right into Ragnarok. So
wow.
it is like, it pretty much is a Planet Hulk movie.
Oh wow.
With like sprinkling of Thor in it. But this movie, like with it being Taika Waititi's directorial debut in the MCU, I guess one of 2, since I don't think they're having him come back. But, this movie is probably the funniest out of all of the MCU.
Which, not to jump ahead, but Love and Thunder, it's probably fair. It's gonna be as.
We'll talk about that later.
But
Phase 4.
But yeah, this is definitely one of the best. And it does a pretty good. I was just gonna say it's one of the best like script joke written funny movies where it's like everything's very much like punchline based. But I think that's probably not giving it enough credit, because I think there are some really good, even if they probably weren't improvisational performances, but just like really good organic chemistry type comedy. And a lot of that admittedly comes when oh gosh, I always forget names when I start recording things.
You're okay.
But oh no, this is a major brain melt.
Tom Hiddleston,
no,
Chris Hemsworth.
He does the apartments.com's commercials. Jeff Goldblum.
Oh yeah.
It took me a second. I'm sorry. But yeah, like he's fantastic.
Oh yeah. Tessa Thompson's great in it. Yeah.
Tessa Thompson's great. And even though I think that she gets better throughout the movie, because I didn't think that I'm the last Valkyrie, I'm just gonna get drunk until I die, was all that great of a plot point, but she definitely gets better. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and like just what she means like to the Hulk and like kind of that development and stuff.
Yeah.
Which again, like talk about wasted potential with the Hulk of how much good work they did in this and then just like threw it away. But I digress. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. But no, I think for a while I was really resistant to this movie because I tend to like a bit more of a more serious Thor. Just, I don't know, like, because with Dark World. right?
Yeah, Thor: Dark World, the second one.
Is like the chemistry between Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston is
Yeah.
fantastic, and
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
great like brotherly chemistry.
Yeah.
And, but also like I enjoyed the lighter side because then I felt like it made the lows that you see Thor hit in like future installments
Yeah.
did make that feel heavier. You kind of
Yes.
got to see this like yin and yang
Yes.
of Thor that I think was great.
Which is the main point that everyone pointed out when you talk about the first two movies, is that there was like literally zero character development for Thor. It was just Thor is God of Thunder. Here I am. And
Hear me roar.
Hear me roar. Yeah, that's literally it. But yeah, you do get a ton of character development in this one. I think that's what. I mean, probably like it was probably a make or break scenario for Marvel, where it's like if this doesn't come off, the first two were so bad that like we just can't continue with him anymore. Which, if you think about this in an Infinity War and Endgame perspective, especially Infinity War, would have been such a bummer to not have, because he is, and we'll talk about it, like he is for me the star of the show. So yeah, the fact that this comes off as such a great movie and so well received is probably better for anything than just a standalone feature.
Yeah, and again, just like the revamp, and like it's such a fine line, because that creativity and that freedom can either have huge payoffs or not so much in different movies. But they like everything about this movie is, and I don't know, every time I talk about it, there's like this resistance. But this is like really an A movie. Like,
yeah, I after more rewatches, I'm not as high on it as I was when I first watched it for the first couple times, but I think it's still an A or at least a B plus. Like I think it's very, very high on rewatchability. It's still a good movie. There's with anything almost, there's things you can dissect the more things you watch or the more times you watch. But yeah, great movie. I also think that something I forget all the time, because it's not a huge part of the story, and maybe this is one of the critiques that you could have about it, is that the introduction of Helena and like her eventual death all happens very swiftly.
Yeah.
And maybe, Thor having a sister that's even more powerful than him could have been something that was used across multiple films, but
It is a little bit busy when you think like, I mean,
it's a Thor movie, it's a Helena movie, it's a Hulk movie, it's
a Surtur movie, it's a Ragnarok movie.
It's a lot. It's a lot all at once.
Yeah. So, and that being said, though, that the final fight scene, when he becomes the god of, really becomes like the god of thunder.
Yes.
Even though he uses lightning.
Yeah. It all comes the same. One and the same.
Is probably like I get chills just thinking about that.
Yeah.
Like, and what is it? It's what's the song that plays?
Yeah, Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, perfect. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, chills. It's like so good. So
Yeah.
Again, this is like one I think you just pop in the background and you laugh and enjoy.
Yeah. And if I think I kind of touched on this a little bit with how I felt about Thor's character and how he plays a role in Infinity War, but if we take a step back and kind of more of a macro perspective about how this movie fits in the rest of the MCU and like how the characters fit in, I think this maybe the main thing that you can say about this movie is it does a really good job of keeping these characters interesting and playing and giving them a propulsion to play a big role in the following final films that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely keep it in there. Like it's almost crucial to the integrity of the rest of the phase and the rest of the Infinity Saga.
Which I mean, with the previous installments, there was a ton of building, but for sure in like the beginning of Phase 3, there is like a ton of building.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. All right. I think that's probably enough on this one. I think let's probably just move on to the next one. This one, how are we looking on time? I think this one is one we could talk about for ages as well, being Black Panther. One of our favorites for sure.
Best villain.
Yeah, best villain. Again, probably could have stuck around for a little bit longer, but who knows? I'm trying to figure out how we should pose this where we have limited time, because I really could talk about this film forever. let's just start with saying we had our introduction, we had our little taster to Black Panther and Civil War. How did you feel that Black Panther was received and how his character was shown off from the start when you get your next viewing of Black Panther coming off of what we saw from him in Civil War?
I mean, there was so much hype and people were so excited for this, and like even people like dressing up to go to the theaters and everything. And Ryan Coogler like did such a good job. The music, the visuals, the acting, I mean, the screenplay, like the dialogue, like how they set up Killmonger as a villain, Claw, like the Okoye and the Dora Milaje.
Yeah, I think so.
Like having Bucky, you know,
it's building a whole world, like building a whole world. And
which, it's so good.
Yeah, and we've spoken about other films in the MCU in the past. One of them being Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Of like when you build a whole world, it's hard to get that right. And this one absolutely executed flawlessly from start to finish.
Yeah, I don't. There's not many like negative things about this movie. Like even, I mean, just the chemistry that the cast had was fantastic. M'Baku coming in and Shuri and like Angela Bassett killing it as always. Like I don't know. I have nothing bad to say about this movie.
I have nothing bad to say about this movie either. I think let's just talk about a couple more things. But I mean, that's pretty much all we need. It's like fantastic movie, great character development, great character introductions to show you kind of who these people are going to be, especially when like the next introduction for a lot of these characters, or a next appearance for a lot of these characters is going to be an Infinity War when the stakes are so high that it's like you kind of need to know who these people are and what they're going to do in situations like that. And this does a really good job of inviting that really high level conflict in an introduction film where you can like look back to other films like Thor, the first Thor, and being like the stakes for that were almost zero. You know what I mean? Like that was not a good introduction of how a character handles conflict, you could probably argue. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna jump in and say like to your point that they like make the world so amazing that in future films like this is where a huge battle happens, you know, and like you I feel like there's even more of that like care that like you want. I mean, this is like the coolest you know country in the world, and
this is the setting for the end of days for two. This is the setting for basically another hour and a half or 2 hours of battle action. Like it's fantastic. I don't even know what else is. Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger, fantastic. I wish we could have seen 10 out of 10. It all makes sense. Like his character and everything all his motivations I think make sense. I don't even know what else to say about this. I have other things to say about this movie in general, or this trilogy, or not trilogy, this whatever. What's a franchise within a franchise? A
franchise.
I
don't know.
But you know, I have other things to say about future Black Panthers movies, but this one, fantastic.
Cool.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. I feel like we've covered that well enough. Again, like I said, there's so much that we could talk about for this one, but with the limited time that we have, let's just move on to Avengers Infinity War. Oh, I thought it was going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp was the next one, actually. Avengers Infinity War. The best movie they've ever made.
I don't even
just stop there.
Yep. The payoff is fantastic. They finally showed Thanos. Killmonger's still number one, but like it's Thanos and Killmonger.
Oh no. I think I don't know. I think that Thanos, or oh man, now you've kind of got my brain going.
Because Killmonger like pretty much gets you on his side, like that perfect dialogue, like I was talking about with Civil War, of like that they almost like I'm making a really good point, but I'm also a bad guy.
Yeah,
you know what it's like. Where this was like, I don't get that. It's just like this is why I'm doing it, and like it's just so well presented.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's go. Let's go.
But then, I mean, Thanos, like, genocide is also really bad. And
but on the at the same time, not that you're going to agree with genocide of half the world, but I think this film does a really good job of making you almost, not fully go, but almost understand what. And if nothing else, it makes it super believable for his character that these are the motivations that he has. Like, it's not like, you know, because I mean, that's heavy, obviously, that his entire existence is to eliminate half the population of all living things. So you have to make that where it's like either he is the absolute worst person on earth and is the biggest narcissist, sociopathic, like he's Christian Bale in American Psycho times 1,000, or you have to just make his character development and his storyline really believable. And I think they did that with the whole, like, his growing up and all that. Like, so yeah, like I get it to a certain extent. And I think that the fact that you buy in from, well, maybe this is, I'll ask you this question. Do you think, how long do you think it takes for you to buy in that Thanos is who Thanos is and he's not just, because from previous movies, we kind of just get this little glimpse of him here and there. And it's like, why do people care about this Thanos guy so much? So how do you think his introduction as the big bad villain of this entire thing, like, how do you think that went?
Well, to start it off, the fight that he has with the Hulk and just like completely schools him, which again, I hate how the Hulk's been treated, but also, like, I mean, the death of Loki right off the bat, it just delivered. I mean, right off the first scene, and then just this like ominous, like unstoppable force, like finally coming in.
Well, the line that the Hulk delivers when he ends up at Doctor Strange's place in New York, where he's like, the Hulk or the Thanos, he's coming, and it's like you can see, even though that they don't know who it is yet, you can see the gravity in his eyes about who it is. Yeah. As like, okay, we need to take this seriously. And then immediately after that, having his little cronies show up to New York and start effing stuff up is like. Yeah, it's, you get it pretty quickly that like this is a big deal.
Overall, so I mean, I guess to kind of wrap things up, because I know we're trying to move along, is that this is the best movie of the MCU in total, hands down.
Yeah,
high rewatchability, visuals are great. The music, it doesn't necessarily stand out, but it's great for the movie.
It's well scored. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. You know, 10 years and 22 films prior.
I want to, because looking at the list, there's a couple more films on here that we can give less time to. I want to say, and also now looking at our list, doing some live producing here, is Avengers Endgame in Phase 4? I didn't think it was in Phase 4. I thought it was the start, or Phase 3. I thought it was the start of Phase 4.
No, Phase 3, because Phase 1, 2, and 3 is the Infinity Saga. And so it ends with Endgame to kind of cap that off, and then randomly throws in Spider-Man: Far From Home.
That's so weird. I'm just
you're fact checking me, but it's right.
That's so weird, and maybe that's why I'm thrown off, because it's like,
because
why?
Then after that they go into the multiverse saga until they lose their king.
Yeah, we haven't even started.
Kangarang.
We haven't even started scripting how that's gonna go. Okay, you're right. I just couldn't. For some reason, I was thinking, even though this makes sense, I was thinking that it was a Phase 4 movie. Anyways, my point being, there's some of them on here that we can give less time to. So I want to just say with Infinity War, because you mentioned it when we first started with this, is that the delivery on this, because I want to make a clear point to say this is the best film.
Yeah.
And with maybe Black Panther, you could put up against it. But as far as like executing a plot and doing what Marvel doesn't do and build suspense and then go with like basically an M. Night Shyamalan delivery, plot twist at the end, I don't think anybody expected what happened to happen before they went into the film.
And just like the cultural experience of being in the theater and like pack theaters. And
Everyone
just,
was silent.
like, and shout. Like, I remember there was one that there was a guy in the back that was like, "What the hell?" That like people were so mad. I mean, because like up until that point, you know, how many films that like the good guys always come out on top, but this
Yeah.
is like they're facing real consequences.
Right.
They lost, right?
Yeah.
They like despite their best efforts, and so again, chills. Like it just, and then like to see that like it just kind of cascaded from that of like
Yeah.
you know, and then with Endgame, and then like Spider-Man, No Way Home, like these like events that everyone was
Yeah.
going, and everyone thought it was cool to be a nerd.
Yeah. Because it is. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, but it just, I don't know. It was so cool to see something that, like that you hold personally dear, like be so popular and get the validation it deserves. So 10 out of 10.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. And I think that if you look at like Rotten Tomatoes, I think this still has the highest score of any of the Marvel films. Like I said, Black Panther as a film, standalone film, is probably right up there as far as storyline and execution goes and everything like that. But this is going to sound stupid because I know that obviously being Thanos, your main villain, there was a lot of CGI. It's a Marvel film, but I feel like this one, where personally for me, I'm a very like traditional film. Like I like everything to be practical. So the fact that I feel like a lot more of Infinity War is practical, and it was just more of a real world story until you get to, I really enjoyed that element of it. So anyways, yeah, great.
That they made it feel practical.
Yeah.
Though. You know, it didn't feel like this is just like over the top blue screen crap like that. I don't know. They just took their time with it. So.
Yeah. Great movie. Would recommend. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Dude, I think you and I had chatted about this before. That there was like somebody who was like, this movie was the worst. Like, am I supposed to see something? Like, I had no idea where the plot was.
I don't even know what to say to that person.
Like,
I don't even know what to say.
If you haven't seen a single Marvel movie and that's your first, you are not going to enjoy it because you are missing a lot.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's what it was. I think it was my now wife, Carly. I think this was her first Marvel experience of any kind. So she was just, which it wasn't even she was saying like, this movie sucks. What's up with the plot? She was just hella confused. Like, I don't know who these people are or what's going on.
Is that Wonder Woman?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but you can kind of give her that.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. So
Exactly.
it's no hate to
And we've now watched all of them multiple times, and she loves Marvel and everything like that. So, anyways, let's move on to the next one because I'm looking at all the cameras now, and we are running very low on battery. So, I don't want to cut.
as per usual.
Now, I don't want to be insensitive for these next two movies because they are introductions of women as lead characters, lead protagonists. But I think they're also two of the weakest plots. Or maybe not so much weakest plots, but I think they're not executed to the level that we've gotten from previous films, and that's Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel. So with the limited time we have, let's package these two together and kind of say what worked and what didn't work with these two.
I think that the bummer and the thing that like these had to be like the filler between two amazing points that like after
maybe that's what it is to some degree.
Is like after seeing Infinity War to jump into Ant-Man and the Wasp, like the stakes just feel way less. But like Evangeline Lilly does such a good job as the Wasp. Ghost is awesome. Really, really cool powers. Goliath obviously being in it with
I can't think of it now.
Morbius. That's always what I think.
Lawrence Fishburne.
There we go.
Yeah.
I think he does a great job. It's just kind of like the stakes feel a little bit low, but I mean, gotta love me some Paul Rudd.
Sure. One of my favorite scenes in maybe all of the MCU when he walks through the elementary school he's tiny and he's got the giant hoodie on. That's fantastic.
That is fantastic.
And the little one-liners that he gets from but
I think the one thing I didn't necessarily love, and even maybe preferring the Infinity Saga over the Infinity Saga over the Multiverse Saga is like the quantum realm and stuff. I've had a hard time buying into.
Yeah,
and
that's fair. I'm not
going after. Is it Janet Van Dyne?
Yeah.
The mom.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. It was fine.
It was fine. Like I get it. And you know what's funny? Maybe that I had literally never thought about something until you just said it. The fact that it was sandwiched in between Infinity War and Endgame is maybe what kind of colors the way that I see these two movies, because if you just take it on the surface level, right? All the things you've just mentioned, Janet Van Dyne, they go and save her from the quantum realm. She's out there just kicking it, doing her own thing in the quantum realm. I think that's a better storyline than Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I think that's a way better storyline than Eternals.
Agree to disagree, but
and same thing with Captain Marvel. I think Captain Marvel, there are a lot of things I don't necessarily like about the way that they developed her character, but she's awesome. She's a badass. Samuel L. Jackson, his like kind of early days in S.H.I.E.L.D. is really cool. I'm not a big fan of the guys that can shapeshift and turn into everything. What are they called?
The Scrolls.
Scrolls. Yes.
Because it's the Kree and the Skrull are the two, and I think Captain Marvel is technically a Kree.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy though. Like when you go to towards the end of the movie and you find out that the Skrulls are actually like good guys, and that the Kree are the jerks. Right?
Well, yeah,
or am I getting that mixed up?
Yes. Comic book wise, it gets a little bit more complicated than that.
Well,
but
at least the way they introduce it in the
yeah.
movie is of like they've just been refugees, like trying to find a home this whole time, and the Kree keep trying to f up their stuff. Like, but anyways, it's like I think there are things that could work about this, but yeah, I don't know. There's just something about it, and I've always not really been able to put a finger on it, and maybe that's what it is. It's just that they had the disadvantage of being sandwiched in between the two biggest films in Marvel's franchise history.
Well, that on top of like, I just kind of feel like this is a little bit of like Marvel fatigue to at this point, that it's just kind of like a summer popcorn blockbuster.
Sure.
That, like, it's just, I don't know. Brie Larson is fantastic and does a great job, but this movie just kind of like it's a B.
And she's one of the best parts of Endgame.
Like, listen, I have no problem with Marvel's female Goku. Like, she does a great job, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
I
the
think
amnesia thing, like it was fine.
I think it comes down to I just kind of expected more from the developers of the film, the writers of the film, to make this more interesting.
And that's what it all boils down to, right? Of like, whenever you have these creative freedoms, it just boils down to, is the writing good? Are you developing your characters? Are you getting your audience to, build into the world and have empathy and like understand where they're coming from? Or is it just kind of bells and whistles and mirrors and smoke and all that stuff?
I think largely I just wanted more out of that. Out of both of them, honestly, out of Ant-Man and the Wasp, to kind of tie those two together.
Ant-Man one's better than the second.
Way better.
Way better.
Way better. Even though the villain's probably worse.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah. Oh man, the Yellow Jacket?
Yeah.
Like Ghost is so cool, but
Ghost is way better. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyways, all right, let's move on. Let's actually do this because I want to chronologically. It's Spider-Man: Far From Home is after Endgame.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
It makes me so angry.
But in the matter of time and giving more time to the movie, we enjoyed more, and also, just putting it back into the order that it should have been. I don't know why this is. Let's tackle Far From Home before we get to Endgame. Far From Home is 100% two movies. It's not one cohesive storyline. It's two movies. And the fact that they try to do what Infinity War did and give you an M. Night Shyamalan type twist didn't work.
Yes. So we'll do good cop, bad cop with this one. I'll be the good cop on this and just say Mysterio is my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Also, Rey Mysterio just sounds like a terrible 70s porn star name or something like that. Rey Mysterio, like it's not a good.
Is it? I thought Rey Mysterio was the wrestler. I think his name's just Mysterio.
Maybe that's what I'm
pretty sure. Rey Mysterio is the wrestler. It's just Mysterio, my friend.
Okay, well, I'm blaming you for this then, because you wrote the rundown, and the rundown says villain Rey Mysterio.
It's good. Yeah, that was a joke. That was a joke for Steven and also Dalton. Now that you're here, hi. Yeah, it's just Mysterio. So like the visual scenes with that of like, you know, Spider-Man like coming out of the grave and all that, like that stuff is like perfect and is key. But there's like, I don't know, the whole movie of just like Spider-Man being a sad boy, and then like it's starting off with like him fighting the elementals, but then like just going after.
Well, and the fact that it all ends up being basically like a tech guy who uses drones to project images to become the bad guys is like the dumbest storyline I could ever think of.
Yeah, and
this is like a trash heap, throw it out, like what do we have next kind of.
And it's kind of tough because like I guess on the other side of the aisle with DC, he's kind of like a friendlier Scarecrow because he technically should be using like gases and stuff. And,
oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, it's like neurological stuff that like he attacks people and like gets them to, you know, be in like different states of mind, where this like drones are less cool. Like,
yeah, if they would have just made him the Marvel version of Scarecrow,
that would
have been sick.
Yeah,
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, because if I remember right, he like uses like different toxins and stuff, but yeah, like even like Spider-Man the animated series, he's way cooler, and then like in those OG comics, he's a lot cooler than.
Man, that kind of bumped me out. That would have been way better.
Yeah. So like kind of that weird section that I'm talking about, where like Peter like has no idea where he is, and he's kind of like doing you know, Doctor Strange through the universe. Like that is like Mysterio's like power, I guess. See,
yeah, actually, you know what? That's when you put it like that, and when you think about the potential that this movie and that character could have had, because that is like, I could see that being Mysterio, like being actually a sick villain if that's what he does, disillusioning people and disorienting them and making them feel like they're in some kind of weird paradox or something. Like that's, man, okay, well.
Kind of gives you a different perspective.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about this movie for the rest of my review, because that would have been way. I guess my review is that would have been way better, Marvel. Why didn't you take that approach?
It almost just kind of feels like a little bit of Spider-Man 2 or 3, of like or you know, Spider-Man doesn't like want to be Spider-Man anymore, which is kind of gone over a lot too. So I don't know it. Like with Captain Marvel, it could have been a lot better and was just okay. But the inner, you know, childhood Steven did love seeing Mysterio on the big screen.
Sure.
And Jake Gyllenhaal's great.
Sure.
But he also might be a dick. But I mean,
yeah, we'll get into.
I'm sure he's nice. I don't know.
I guess we'll do a tier list one time about who's like the biggest dick or who should cancel it. I don't know. We'll tackle that at a different point. But all right, then let's move on to the finale of this phase, the finale of a lot of these characters for us. Kind of our last glimpse at a lot of the people that we've grown up in a way seeing on the screen for the last 10, 15 years. Avengers Endgame, obviously, we're talking about. And I want to start just by saying that as good of an ending as Infinity War had, and you having that realization while you're in the theater sitting there that half of the characters that I've come to know and love over the last 10 years are gone. And then your immediate question is, or at least my immediate question coming out of the theater was, okay, but this is Marvel, so like, you know, this isn't going to stay that way forever, right? And so how do you do that? That's tricky to say, okay, we're going to take everyone away or take half of the population away, but then we're going to bring them back. And it's not going to be cringy. So I was just going to say, I think that when you set that all up, they could have failed easily. And I don't think they did. I don't know. Maybe there was, maybe in some fan fiction or something like that, somebody has a better idea as far as how they could have reintroduced these characters and stuff like that. But I think it works. And I think that the whole time travel thing, the way that they set it up, works really well too. Of like, I think that's kind of how it succeeds. Is it's not just, all right, I've got a cool idea, let's do it. Like, there's a lot of trial and error that has to go on. There's a lot of convincing Tony Stark. Tony Stark finally figures it out. Although that might be my one little kind of, he goes down in the basement for like 2 hours and he figures out time travel. Like, how you couldn't have figured that out beforehand? Like, I think that's maybe my one quibble with how that all comes about. But I think overall, getting through, because this is very much like a Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 kind of film. Mm-hmm. Act 1, I think, had the potential to fail, but I think succeeded.
Yeah, and that's like kind of what I was going to lead into. For me personally, the second act, which is I feel like is the majority of this movie, is just a bit lackluster. But Act 1 and 3 are fantastic.
Knock it out of the park.
Like, I mean, all of the superheroes coming together.
Yeah.
Obviously, spoiler alert, warning, but excuse me. Thor, being able to toss Mjolnir to Captain America.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's so many just so dumb, nerdy, that, and finally getting Avengers Assemble out of Captain America. It's literally just like the writers were like, and here we go, and they're just knocking you down with the most cliche things, but the things you've been wanting for 10 years.
Well, I mean, even
sorry to cut you off, but because I always get this mixed up on my brain, because I always think that Captain America has a beard at the end of it, but Infinity War Captain America with the beard, why don't we get that forever? That's the best look.
Because the set design didn't want it.
Okay, anyways, I don't want to derail us. Go ahead.
No. I will say the best part of the middle act, though, and we alluded to this before, this is the greatest Thor arc of him realizing he's still worthy, even feeling so down that he missed, and and then he kills Thanos, but it doesn't fix it, and that he just feels like, I don't know. They do such a good job.
Yeah.
With Thor in this, it's the best part of this movie.
Yeah, and it's so funny because he had such a high at the end of Infinity War, or towards the end of Infinity War, his character was just building, and him showing up with the new Stormbreaker. Showing up with Stormbreaker is let's go, it's on now. That's one of the best scenes in all of the MCU. If you're just just to boil things down to rewatchable clips or something like that, one of the best scenes.
It's just it's funny because it is Stormbreaker, but it makes me just think of God of War and the Leviathan axe. That it just it's so cool because again with Thor Ragnarok, you're just seeing Thor at his full power. The stakes that they each have, and obviously a lot of people hated Star-Lord for his part in it, but Doctor Strange and the relationship between Iron Man and Spider-Man, and the build up, there are a lot of payoffs. To me, this is still second to Infinity War, but especially the more we talk about it, there is a lot of payoff.
There's so much payoff, and just to highlight another couple scenes, because you brought some things up in my mind when we were talking. This goes back to Infinity War, but one of the most emotional scenes, and I think what really sells it for me of the stakes and how big of an impact what happens at the Infinity War is the scene where Spider-Man's slowly disappearing, and he's I'm almost getting emotional just talking about, and he's Tony Stark, I don't want to and he's just fading. You could see oh my gosh, just the impact of that is so. But then when he comes back, the impact of that as well, and then maybe one of the best or the most memed, but in a good way, scenes is the one just look over. I can't tell you, but just look over. So good, and I like the development between the relationship between Doctor Strange and Iron Man throughout Infinity War, and then coming into this film, like they have a weird, I don't even know how to describe the dynamic of them two, but like it's almost like you have like the smartest guy in the room in one thing and the smartest guy in the room in another thing, and they both know that they have to work together, and like they trust each other in a weird, you know, but they hate each other. So like, anyways, but yeah, so payoff, those three scenes are fantastic. I'm sure there's other ones that we're missing that have a lot of payoff to them as well, but
going back, I think to justify why I hate on the middle act so much is that time travel movies and heist movies just aren't really my thing, and that's pretty much what the second act is.
Yeah,
it's just a time
fair.
travel heist movie. And also Thanos from Endgame or from Infinity War would kick the snot out of Infinity War.
Yeah.
Thanos. Like, it's not like all of a sudden he doesn't have any of the Infinity Stones, and like it just is so stupid.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why it takes like almost a moment of improvisation, or like why you don't really see the build up to what's happening to where when they finally take down Thanos, like there's so many elements that have to come together because like Thanos in Endgame is just, he's Thanos better. So how are you going to stop Thanos better? So yeah, there's a lot they had to do to get to that point.
Yeah, and I don't know. I kind of almost was like hoping that they would have went in a different direction with like a villain of like, I don't know, but you also just like don't want to keep adding on to the stakes. But I also think just having it be like, oh yeah, well it's another Thanos.
Yeah.
Is like, I don't know. It just it wasn't it for me.
Yeah.
But that being said, like, time's up.
Somehow my wife has set off the fire alarm. Hopefully it's nothing
Somebody
too
call
bad.
911. Wanda in this is super cool. Like, I don't know, we could go on probably a while on this one too. I do have that, and I guess that's like the differentiator for me is that Infinity War, I don't really have anything bad to say. Where Endgame, like I do have some critiques that I personally just didn't like the direction, but again, like as what they needed to do, it was amazing.
Sure. And all right, we're almost out of battery on our cameras now, so let's just wrap this up by saying, I just want quickly, if you can give it to us in a couple minutes, outside of the movies themselves, talking about specific, like just, I think we both agree this is the best phase in our Marvel, and I think this is what really seals the deal. If you become a lifelong Marvel fan, if you weren't previously from the comics, like just the films themselves, this really seals the deal of like how much you've invested and the payoffs that we've talked about and stuff like that. So just touching on a couple quick things, like what do you love about phase 3? Like what do you think about phase 3? Like what do you take away?
So my thought always is to go to Infinity War, just like the Infinity Stones and the build up, and like again, you know, the cultural experience of going into the theater and just like loving these characters and these stories, and like, you know, dudes in tights, you know, having special abilities and stuff like that. And I just want to point out too is like, whether you like the comics or, you know, the animated series or video games or like even just the MCU, I think it was just fun for everybody to enjoy, you know, a certain type of art in this medium.
Yeah.
But overall, it was just tons of payoff, like well done. And it's kind of tough because now going into phase 4, which we'll get onto in another movie or, you know, another pod, it's just you're starting over, so like those rewards and payoffs aren't as much. But I don't know. What about for you? What are the things you think of?
I think for me, it's just a lot of. I mean, I think I mentioned this a couple times already, so I don't want to sound like a broken record. But I think it's just a lot of payoff to characters and seeing who they truly become at the biggest crisis moments and seeing how they deal with adversity and stuff like that to me. And then also not just seeing how they deal with adversity, but seeing how they can work together and like not, because like I'm also not necessarily a big fan of like the A team, super team, like we're all just the best. Like I like to see people's flaws, but how they overcome those flaws. You know what I mean? And I think that you get
Shout out Thor.
Shout out Thor. I think you get a lot of that in this in phase 3 specifically, and like you said, all the things that you get the payoff from in game, but because of all of the build up in Infinity War and just really developing that world. And for me, let's end on this. This is my last thought. For me, I think they should have ended not Marvel, because you're not going to do that when it's making billions of dollars, but ended the kind of like space theme stuff with this, because I think it's almost perfect. Like it's such a good storyline, such a good world that they've built. And so like taking it to the multiverse saga, which we'll obviously talk about into another podcast, like just wasn't it for me. I think this is where it should have ended. And anyways, I don't want to get too negative to end the thing, because we've talked about a lot of fun stuff, but yeah, just a lot of fun characters. And I think maybe it's just kind of like the closing the book on a lot of people that I really enjoyed.
And I think the thing that's like so poetic, and I will say like, while I have my gripes, is like the perfect ending is that Iron Man was always told that like you're not willing to sacrifice it all for the greater good, and Cap was never willing to take time for himself, and they both were able to like crescendo, and like Steve Rogers finally got to go, you know, home to Peggy, and Tony Stark saved the world from his anxiety and fear. Well, not, I mean, it was actual threat too, but you know what I mean? Like he overcame his fears and, you know, did it. So it was awesome.
It was awesome. It was a hell of a ride. Let's end it there. Before this recording shuts off.
It just clips out.
Thanks for sticking with us. We'll have another one hopefully before 2 years from now.
When we're back in 6 and 7, 8, who knows?
We'll catch you guys on the next one. Hopefully not too long from now. Thanks for watching Marvel Forever, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, peace.